So King Cyrus issues a decree in 538 BC. He issues a decree for the temple to be rebuilt in Jerusalem. Okay, so here we see God sovereignly doing things, and what happens is 50 years after the temple was destroyed, some of the exiles head back to Jerusalem. Not all of them, but some of them. They head back to Jerusalem to rebuild the temple. And they meet in Jerusalem, and they got two leaders called Yeshua and Zerubbabel. And under the leadership of these two blokes, they build the altar. And once they built the altar, they start worshipping God there again. So you've got a glimmer of hope here. Then they rebuild the temple. So it takes them 20 years basically for the temple to be rebuilt. Okay, so they rebuild the temple, but the temple isn't as impressive as before. It's in Haggai 2:3. It's not as impressive as before. And there's people who end up weeping, and there's a question of whether they're weeping with such joy that, oh, we've got the temple, or if maybe they're actually weeping and being like, this isn't like the temple back in the day. And the temple's also nothing like the temple that Ezekiel prophesied. So Ezekiel prophesies this amazing temple that doesn't, it's just absolutely amazing. And what's built here is nothing like that. So the temple's built, but Jews are still living in exile. So this question of are the prophecies being fulfilled, it's like, it doesn't look like they're being fully fulfilled because there's still Jews living in exile. And if you read the book of Esther, you find out what it was like living as Jews in exile under King Xerxes. And the Jews almost get wiped out there. But something good happens. I won't spoil the story for you who haven't read it yet. That's in the book of Esther. Also, if we go back to Jerusalem now, these guys who have rebuilt the temple, what do they start doing? They start marrying foreigners, which we know from what we studied before that they're not supposed to do that. But they start intermarrying with foreign nations, and then they start following their gods as well. So they do what's called syncretism, where you take a bit of worship for the true God and then you take false worship of other gods and you kind of put them together and make your own religious practices. It's a bit like mixing drinks. People say you shouldn't mix drinks, but this is mixing religion, syncretism. So these guys do this. So this is not good, and this doesn't look like a fulfillment of God changing people's hearts so they follow his law. So what happens then is a bloke called Ezra turns up on the scene. And Ezra turns up and he causes the people to repent of this intermarriage that they're doing. And then after Ezra, a bloke called Nehemiah turns up. And Nehemiah turns up to rebuild the city walls, because they built the temple but they don't have any city walls. So under Nehemiah that happens. And then one day you get Ezra, he reads out the law to the people. And the law is explained to the people, and the people weep and they renew their covenant with God. So the question is, have we seen the prophecies about returning to the land and being given a new heart fulfilled? Or, in this return from the exile, are we only seeing a partial fulfillment and there's still more of the story that we're waiting to happen? And this is basically where the Old Testament story ends. And you're left with this question of, what about the return from the exile that's been promised? And I'll read out the prophecy. It's Ezekiel 36:24. This is one of the prophecies. It says, "For I will take you out of the nations. I will gather you from all the countries and bring you back into your own land. I will sprinkle clean water on you, and you will be clean. I will cleanse you from all your impurities and from all your idols. I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit in you. I will remove from you your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. And I will put my spirit in you and move you to follow my decrees and be careful to keep my laws. You will live in the land I gave your forefathers. You will be my people and I will be your God."